no problem of mine. It's a problem I find, living a life that I can't leave behind. There's no sense in telling me the wisdom of a fool won't set you free. That's the way that it goes, it's what nobody knows, while every day my confusion grows. Every time I see you falling, I get down on my knees and pray. I'm waiting for that final moment to say the words that I can't say. I feel good. I feel like I never should. When I get this way, I just don't know what to say. Why can't we be ourselves like we were yesterday? Well, I'm not sure what this could mean. I don't think you're what you seem. I admit to myself, if I hurt someone else, I'll never see just what we're meant to be. Every time I see you falling, get down on my knees and pray. I'm waiting for that final moment to say the words that I can't say. Every time I see you falling, get down on my knees and pray. I'm waiting for that final moment to say the words that I can't say. Every time I see you falling, get down on my knees and pray. I'm waiting for that final moment to say the words that I can't say. Every time I see you falling, get down on my knees and pray. I'm waiting for that final moment to say the words that I can't
I hate to turn off this music. Someday I'm gonna figure out a way to keep them both going. Maybe I'll split them while it runs out. That's the plan. How is everyone tonight? Thank you guys for being here. I've got only good news. Right? That's what we want. Only good news. Other than I'm really yellow. Not sure how that happened. And I didn't turn my VOR lights on. I'm gonna turn my VOR lights on and figure out this yellow. Maybe that'll be less yellow. I need a gaffer. I need a gaffer. All right. I need a clapboard. I'll say take two. Take two. I'm super excited about watching this movie with you guys. It's weird to say hopefully you haven't seen it, because clearly I would have hoped that you would have seen it. But you may or may not have. It's a film called The Operating System, and it's what got me into making content. Please let me know if you've seen it or not. It's on YouTube. I made it in 2019, just to get an idea of what we're working with here. Go ahead and shut the screen share off. What is hanging? All right, we're figuring it out. Working out the glitches. All right, let's see here. Turn on the chat. Jack Donovan. Hello. Rich Flood, Chip Perry. You've seen it twice. Have you seen it with me giving you the commentary? This is gonna be like you know, when you watch a DVD and like you can do the commentary with the filmmaker. It's gonna be like that. I'm not gonna try and take over the whole thing, but this movie, I've told the story a couple times, but basically I was immersed in the simulation hypothesis. A movie came out by the name The Simulation Hypothesis. I kind of, you know, The Matrix resonated with me on a really deep level. And I had made this joke with Chloe. We had so many crazy coincidences. Let me give you a couple coincidences that were happening. There was a customer that I had in Colorado. And I'm going to intentionally change the name here a little bit, but this guy's name was Rick Wilde, Wilde. So he'd come to my golf shop a million times, and he comes in the door, and I go, Mr. Wolf. And he goes, Luke, it's Wild. My last name is Wild. I said, yeah, I know it is. I don't know why I said Wolf. Yeah, it's Wild, Wilde. I saw WOLFE. Sorry, I know your last name. I don't know where that came from. He's like, whatever, bro. I thought we were friends. So he left. And the next customer that came in, his last name was Wolf, WOLFE. At the same time, I was starting to design t-shirts already. And I had this idea of the outline of Jesus's head on a shirt and the crown of thorns. And it would say, his name is Joshua, because we get the name wrong. Jesus is actually Yeshua, Joshua, Yahushua, Joshua. I was writing it on my phone. I actually took the surveillance footage and I showed it to Chloe when it had happened. I was in my office designing this t-shirt, and it was the silhouette of Jesus's head with the crown of thorns, and it said his name is Joshua. And I walked out, and the guy waiting for me in line had a t-shirt with a silhouette of Jesus's head, and instead of a crown of thorns, it was a headband, like making fun of Jesus. And a ton of those kind of things were happening, right? Really crazy things. And so after about 1,000 of these, another one was thing happening with Eddie Vedder, and the guy Vedder came in, and whatever kept happening. So I made this joke with Chloe that we must be in a video game and it must be running low on memory, on like virtual memory or something, because it's like the random generation device is bogged down. So I made that joke. I was into the simulation hypothesis when the movie came out. It explained so many things to me. It's one of those movies that you're just totally immersed in. There's some clips of it that I'm going to show you in this movie. Anyways, I was also researching the Bible code at the time. So one YouTube video would be the simulation hypothesis. One video would be the Bible code. I was just immersed in both of these. And there's this rabbi, this Jewish rabbi, talking about the Bible code and was talking about all the things they had found. And there was this story of a terrible tragedy in Israel where a couple families were together for a wedding, and the dance floor, the floor that they were dancing on, collapsed, and everybody on the floor died, and everybody it landed on died. It's like 36 people or something. Terrible tragedy. So the Bible code, they had looked into it, and every name of every guest that attended the dance was encoded in the same table. The name of the building, the family who owned the building, the whole thing. And I'm like, wow, the Bible code isn't just telling like these big things that are happening, like the moon landing faked and the Kennedy assassination inside job and 9/11 inside job. It wasn't just telling these things. It was telling all of it. Everything that's happened. I'm like, why? And it hit me that day. And I didn't even know what I was broaching. I didn't even know what I was running into. But I had this idea, this Philip K. Dick moment, where it just was totally clear to me that the Torah is creating this reality. It's creating this reality somehow. And if we're in a computer program, then that would mean that maybe, I knew computer coding was responsible for programs. So I have this idea, like, what if the actual computer programming, like, they would put in like the lazy dog jumped over the river or whatever the readable, the human readable text would be. Like, what if it's a Torah? And I had to sit down. I called Chloe. I'm like, we're in a simulation. The Torah is the source code. It's the operating system. So anyways, I had this computer and I bought all this microphones and things for my band. I was going to be recording music. And next thing I know, I was making this movie, The Operating System. And I remember at first I was like, I've got to get this idea to somebody. And God like really encouraged me, like, you've got to just make this. I'm like, I don't make content. It's like, how hard could it be? Learn how to edit, whatever. So I started making this thing and I became totally immersed in it. It took over my consciousness, and actually all my health issues started about midway through working on this. And, maybe you could make the argument that it was, working and having a son and a wife and trying to make content. I don't know how CPT does it. The guy's an animal, God bless him and sustain him, but, trying to do all of it. But it was almost like something else. It was almost like, any good, crazy person struggles with reality, right? Any good, crazy person has that moment where it's like, what's real, right? If you haven't had that, you're not a real crazy person. You're not like a certified conspiracy theorist. If you haven't had to reel yourself back in and go, all right, what's real? What's real? This is real. That seems real. Okay. I remember who I was. And this experience did that to me multiple times. I might talk about it later in the show. Anyways, I started making the operating system and I'm really happy with it. I haven't watched it since 2019. It's been over 2 years since I watched this thing. I'm going to be critical of it. It's an hour and 12 minutes, and I plan to do some stopping, not a ton of stopping, but I'm going to engage in the chat as it's going on. If you guys have any questions, I'll pause it. We can go over it. If there's anything that's kind of important that I think I need to cover, I'll pause it as well. Hopefully I won't ruin the whole thing. But yeah, I'm excited about doing this. Does anybody have any questions before we get going? Let's see here. Hey, cool. Mitchell, I think you've seen this, right? Richard says he has. Richard, that feels weird. Steph, have you seen this? I'd love it if you'd watch it. I know you're busy. Thank you for being here. Signature of God. Grant Jeffrey was a huge Grant Jeffrey. Jeffrey got into the Bible codes as well. I'm sure you know. Talks about the Bible codes right there. Can I quantify my crazy? No, that would make it not crazy. It's got to be subjective, amorphous, in and out, right? It's got to be that way. African tribes say you can be a true wise man until you've lost touch with reality and come back. So that happened to me. I guess I'll just cover that really quick. So the premise of this documentary is that the Torah creates this reality, and I was really into the synth music. I still am, but I wrote a lot of the soundtrack. Anything really polished, like vocals and drum tracks and stuff, probably isn't me. But any of the keys, like the real 80s synth stuff, I actually wrote because I was like, I'm gonna make a documentary and write all the music. Anyways, I was listening to synth music and I was researching Philip K. Dick. If you guys don't know this is really important. Have you seen that Philip K. Dick came up with the idea of the Matrix? Are you familiar with this? That the very first person to talk about us being in a computer simulation in modern times, obviously Plato played with the idea. Anybody in idealism has dealt with this information-based reality idea. Philip K. Dick was a prophet and a dreamer and a psychic and a medium and whatever else. However you want to quantify being sensitive to the spiritual and also being in and out of reality. The great story of Philip K. Dick is that his son was sick and nobody could figure it out. And he had this dream. He woke up. He's like, he's got this certain kind of hernia. And the doctor's like, how could you know that? And they're like, you better check it. And he did. And he saved his son's life because he saw it in a dream. He came up with Minority Report and Blade Runner and a bunch of content that was very, very future centric. And if we finish this in enough time where I can go back and show you this clip, I will. But it kind of makes me even want to go down that rabbit hole. Hello, Sean. Holly. Hi. Sean Holly. That was confusing. Mitch, one day, when are you going to pick up things from the farm? Can you get me a ride, catch up? No, I'm looking for watch again. Cool. Lulu, it's Rich for That's funny. Holly. Okay, cool. So yeah, if I get down in time, I'll show you this thing. What was I say about Philip K. Dick? I was listening to Philip K. Dick as I was writing this. It really kept me in the mood. It kept me like thinking, like kind of, testing reality, whatever. Anyways, he wrote a paper right before he died called "How to Build a Universe That Doesn't Destroy Itself in 2 Days" or something like that. And it was published in the LA Times a couple weeks before he died. And he was in this paper that he wrote. He said he told all these times how he went in and out of the future, and he started writing these stories that turned out being the exact stories from the Bible that he had never read. He didn't read the Bible. A scene from Acts, and this black guy that had broken down. That in Acts, somebody picked him up along the road and took him somewhere. I don't know the story exactly, but then Philip K. Dick had the same thing, and he helped this guy, and he needed gas for his car. And anyways, he had wrote the story in Acts without knowing Acts, and it was the same names, and he was Philip, and there's a Philip in there, obviously. And anyways, it was really messing with his mind. And I'm listening to this in synth music at the same time, and somebody's reading this essay, and he goes, and I had this really pressing feeling, and I still have it now, that this reality, that time isn't real, that this reality is some kind of illusion, and that the only thing that's real, the foundation, the only thing that doesn't change, that this place is an illusion, and the only thing that's real and it's responsible for the construction of this universe is, and I knew he was going to say the Bible, and he said, is the Bible. And I was working on this piece, and I had this moment where like, I freaked out. I sat down. I felt like my soul was going to leave out of my head. I was like holding it down. I'm like, what's real? And I like laid down and like if I was Chip, I would have rolled out there and probably went flying around. I felt like my soul wanted to leave my body, but it was like that. It was a really crazy experience. So, anyways, it starts off a little slow. I was learning how to make content. It gets better at about the halfway mark. And I love how it ends. The idea is to, in a very passive, non-threatening way, show people that God of the Bible created this reality. That's the goal. And I think it does it fairly effectively. So, all right, cool. JR, he's doing well. Find him obviously out of place. Hopefully he'll be fine. All right, no worries. Cool. Yeah, I remember you being there, Steph. I was thinking you heard that story before. It was crazy. I can't get the same kind of passion for it this time, but um, I just, I don't know where. I don't know. I'm not Chip. I'm not Steph. I'm not these people that have these, Beth, have these really strong gifts um, for the spiritual, but somehow being immersed in this, it was blurry. It was blurry for a little while there. And I came out the backside of it with struggling with health issues. So, um, I put my literal blood into this thing, apparently. Okay, guys, we're gonna get started. I'll be watching. I'm not familiar with that, Michael. That's awesome. I'll be watching the chat. If I need to pause it, I'll pause it. If something goes too fast for someone, or they want me to kind of expound on it, please let me know. Yeah, we all have our gifts. That's not mine, Steph, but I appreciate that. Okay. Also, I'm really excited to do this because uh, I've been wanting to do it for the 9 months that we've been on TikTok or whatever, 6 months, and I haven't had the technology. And right now I do. And we might be on TikTok soon enough where it's a good time to do this. So let's see how to do this here. Share the screen, make me tiny. Oh, I'm down there. Sweet. Thank you guys for watching this with me. The last time I watched this was in a room with about 70 people. They all went to this premiere in Denver. And I felt really good about it. I got them all in the doors. We found a cool venue and we hit play. And it occurred to me that I invited all of the people that I knew professionally, relationships, golf buddies, whoever who knew me well, to watch the movie that I made that was going to tell them that we live in a video game and the Bible is the operating system. And I wanted to die. I wanted to just turn into water and disappear in between the cracks of the hardwood floors and leave the room. And I couldn't. I had to sit there and watch them all watch this. It was really horrifying. So I'm with the right group this time. It was received really well, which is cool. All right, here we go. Before I go, let's see if there's anything else to say. Sweet. Time out. We didn't make it very far, did we? This could be a long time. All right. If I'm pausing it and you guys are like, dude, just let the movie play, other than you, Rich, because I know you're going to say that. I mean, be fair with me. But I started this movie with this animation that I found, and it's the construct of the human body. And it starts with the brain. Have you guys ever looked at a human body this way? I call it our avatar. So you've got your consciousness here somehow routed into your head, and it runs through all these electric lines, all of your nerves, right? And then obviously your respiratory system, cardiovascular system. This thing is there's your intestinal tract, your eyes are connected. How could anybody look at this thing? There's your skeletal system. It's a house, right? God says that it's our temple. This is how you build a house. The plumbing, right? You've got your plumbing, you've got your electrical, you've got your stick build, your foundation, you've got your house. I mean, the whole thing, so beautifully designed. All right. I'm not going to do this the whole movie. Maybe I will. I don't know. Might be like a 3-part deal. 1010. A10. I hope he's in here. That's our old clothing company. Who are we? What are we doing here? How did we get here? What is this place? These are the questions that have burned inside of man for as long as we have been able to ask them. This is the operating system. A philosophic and esoteric look into the simulation hypothesis. What is this place that we are in? This thing we call reality? And where did it come from? How did it begin? When I ask you these questions and your brain starts flipping through its Rolodex of information and memories, looking for answers, what you see probably looks something like this.
Our whole universe was in a hot, dense state that nearly 14 billion years ago expansion started. Wait, the earth began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool, Neanderthals developed tools, we built a wall. We built the pyramids, math, science, history, unraveling the mystery that all started with a big bang.
But why? Why is this what you see? Quite simply, it's because it is what you were taught. As science progresses and new discoveries are being made in the fields of quantum physics and astrophysics, cosmology, mathematics, genetics, it is becoming increasingly clear that this existence and its origins are a lot more complicated than the standard materialist model can explain. So what is the current scientific data actually saying? And what is it leading some of the brightest minds in science and technology to deduce about reality? All right, pause. When I made this, I had no idea that Philip K. Dick had anything to do with They Live. No idea. I found that out. Chloe and I, she was here. I was researching stuff for my show with HI Vibrations about the Matrix show, Thursday night in the Matrix that I would do. I had no idea. And when the co-writer of They Live came out and talked about how they created this movie, I like almost like it fell over. It's crazy, right? I love They Live. The idea of the glasses, all the subliminal messages. You know, I think they get it wrong with the reptilian thing. We're gonna watch They Live one of these nights, though. It's a super good movie. You can hear the music there. I listened to I don't know, 40 hours of old Nintendo soundtracks. You can find them online. Ninja Gaiden, you know, Double Dragon, like all these obscure titles. I would just listen to hours and hours of it, and I hand selected a handful of them. So it's a video game movie, and it's supposed to have a video game feel, and it's all 80s. Everything in the pop culture in this is 80s. So there's a couple clips from The Matrix. So 80s video game thing, that's obviously where that came from. And the next thing is, has anybody in this room seen the movie A Glitch in the Matrix? It's the movie by filmmaker Rodney Asher. It came out last year, and Chloe and I were I was excited to watch it, and so we sat down, we paid for it. And it's an entire ripoff of my documentary. It's crazy. If you watch this whole thing through, and then you watch A Glitch in the Matrix, you're going to see they use this scene. They used, I don't know, 8, 10 scenes that I used, some of the same symposiums, the exact same parts of these clips. It got to the point, Chloe, after like 30 minutes, started looking up copyright laws because we made this in 2019 and that came out last year, like late 2020. So crazy, including this exact scene. So there you go. There's that.
And so I'm left with the puzzle of trying to figure out whether I live in the Matrix or not.
Wait, you're blowing my mind at this moment. So you're saying, are you saying your attempt to understand the fundamental operations of nature leads you to a set of equations that are indistinguishable from the equations that drive search engines and browsers on our computers?
That is correct. So
Wait, I have to just be silent for a minute here. So you're saying as you dig deeper, you find computer code writ in the fabric of the cosmos?
into the equations that we want to use to describe the cosmos, yes.
Computer code.
Computer code, strings of bits of ones and zeros.
It's not just sort of resembles computer code, you're saying it is computer code.
It's not even just is computer code, it's a special kind of computer code that was invented by a scientist named Claude Shannon in the 1940s.
The more I learned about it later on as a physicist, the more struck I was that when you get deep down under the hood about how nature works, down to looking at all of you as just as a bunch of quarks and electrons.
And you too, it's not just us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at you as a quark, no, you would come under this category as well.
I am a quark blob too, I confess. So, but if you look at how these quarks move around, you know, the rules are entirely mathematical as far as we can tell. And that makes me wonder, if I were a character in a computer game who started asking the same kind of big questions about my game world, I would also discover eventually that the rules seemed completely rigid and mathematical. I would just be discovering the computer program in which it was written. So that kind of begs the question, how can I be sure that this mathematical reality isn't actually some kind of game or simulation?
I personally find that I gravitate more towards the information theoretic point of view and believing that the universe that I exist in is a very good, high quality simulation.
Well, maybe we're in a simulation right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
A simulation, huh? Like the Matrix? Like we're in the Matrix and it was a documentary? See, we have to think critically. We can't stubbornly hold on to what we were taught. because we're afraid to be wrong or we're proud of what we know. I said things were more complicated than they wanted us to believe, but deep down you knew that was true. You knew there was something wrong with the story. Well, these modern day technological and scientific revelations are forcing us to rethink things. We now have to give credence to the idea that what we are experiencing can no longer be described as random. It may actually be best described as a virtual reality or a digital simulation. Sorry guys, so I've got limited options with Restream, so it just kind of is what it is, so I apologize about that. And then I'm going to rewind it here just a second because of all that stuff going on. This is Elon Musk. I'm sure you've seen the clip talking about us being in a simulation. And the prior guy, this gentleman here, his name is somebody or other, and he worked for JPL and Google and a lot of different places. And he's just stone cold says, like, I know how it works, and we're in an information-based reality. So a lot of the discussions that I have, I was fully immersed in this for a while. I'm really confident in the science of this. If you can trust anything in science, this information is the cutting edge interpretation of reality that we're going to get into here. But so this is one of the soundtrack pieces that I wrote. So I'm playing the synth here. I have an old, really cool Casio that I came in. Somehow I ended up getting it, and it's like from the 80s and super cool old retro synth. And the reason I wanted to pause it and rewind this is this scene. I was like watching the movie playing the synth, and I was able to make a key change right when Elon says simulation, and it has that feel, that cinematic feel. And I'm like, what, 6 minutes into making content? I'd probably been working on it for like a week or something. And I knew right then that this is what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I was so in love with taking powerful information and the right song and marrying it to get an emotion. That's what you saw with a lot of my VOR content on TikTok. It's like at the end of a movie when the right song plays and you leave there with an emotion. I love that, and I want to rekindle it. So I missed that because the whole shenanigans going on. So I'm going to hit play. But just know that when Elon says, like, we're in a simulation, like Stone Cold's, sober, we're in a simulation, and the way that music went, that's when I knew this is what I wanted to do. So there you go.
Simulation.
Well, maybe we're in a simulation right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
A simulation, huh? Like the Matrix? Like we're in the Matrix and it was a documentary? See, we have to think critically. We can't stubbornly hold on to what we were taught because we're afraid to be wrong or we're proud of what we know. I said things were more complicated than they wanted us to believe, but deep down you knew that was true. You knew there was something wrong with the story. Well, these modern day technological and scientific revelations are forcing us to rethink things. We now have to give credence to the idea that what we are experiencing can no longer be described as random. It may actually be best described as a virtual reality or a digital simulation.
The analysis starts at the beginning, with the Big Bang. This well-established cosmological model demonstrates that space-time was created by a single event billions of years ago and expanded into what we see around us today. Nearly all scientists agree that our universe began to exist at one point in the distant past. From the materialist view that our universe is all there is, as an objective, independent reality, the fact that the Big Bang came from nothing is very hard to explain. How could everything come from nothing? But if you look at the universe as a virtual construct, the Big Bang model works perfectly. Virtual worlds always begin with an information influx from a zero state, since they need to initially boot up. Every time a computer game starts up, a Big Bang occurs from the perspective of the game. From inside the virtual world itself, the creation always comes from nothing, because before it boots up, there is no space or time as defined by the rules of that virtual world.
But no, I know though I was waiting for you to come by. I was waiting, girl. Won't you please tell me why this took so long to begin? Darling, where have you been all my life? Oh, don't you know?
Seriously, where has this idea been all of my life? It answers so many questions. No longer do we have to just accept that everything came from nothing, which is the most egregious violation of the first law of thermodynamics imaginable. And not just matter, but energy, the very laws of nature, time itself, all came out of nowhere, no when, and for no reason. Just think about it. When your Xbox or PlayStation or computer is off, it exists in a zero state. Then when you press the power button, there is an influx of energy from the wall outlet, which is connected to the power grid. And then the hardware triggers the software, and voila, totally immersive 3D worlds are generated. I know what you were going to say. Who programmed the programmer? And then who programmed them? And this argument, this logic just spirals down infinitely. All right, you guys. This is so cool. If you've ever thought about the Big Bang, and you guys get this question, right? The question is, well, if you say God created everything, then who created God? Right? Turtles all the way down. Thank you, Michael Payton. Exactly. It's all you ever hear. Who created God? You're always going to have that situation. But with the simulation hypothesis, there's an answer for it, which I'm going to cover here in just a second. And the answer is that the rules specific to this reality, are a product of the design of this reality. And so we have things like beginnings and endings. But where God would be, where the computer is, there doesn't have to be the same kind of rules. They don't have to have beginnings and endings there. The rules could be different where God is. And I know we've thought about that before, right? It's the idea of God is eternal and he's the source, and he's always been. But this way, if you think about, like, when my son turns on his Xbox, he hits the button, it comes to reality. It didn't exist until he hits the button, it comes to reality. In his reality, the rules are totally different. So the idea is where God is, the rules are different. And is it how it happened? We don't know. Obviously, we don't know, but it makes as much sense, if not more. And then I wanted to show you guys something. A lot of the content that I make is rooted in ideas and things that research that I've done in the past. But this here, you guys may have seen that I made this video on TikTok. It's the same basic part of the operating system, but as I was getting better at making content, check out this same little part you just watched about the Big Bang, but when I remade it on TikTok. I didn't realize that the delay was so bad. Apparently that's how all my content is, so that's going to be fun to edit when I repost it. Anyways, you can see it's the same information, but it's a little bit more cinematic. I'm getting better at making content, but that's the same kind of idea told in two different ways. And I certainly want to make the operating system again. I want to produce it like full level, interview the people, live action kind of thing, but just wanted to see a second version of that. I'm muted. Oh no, the audio is low. Well, there you go. Don't know why it was loud on my end, so apologies, guys. Wasting everybody's time with more tech issues. That's what I do. All right. Well, I'll show you that some other way somehow. I don't know how. Back to the movie. But the digital genesis theory actually has an answer for this.
The place that, if there is a computer running things, the place where the computer is doesn't have to have the same laws we have.
I see.
They don't need to be a kind of place that has beginnings and endings.
Darling, where have you been? Where have you been all my life?
Can you see what this means? For possibly the first time ever, we have a legitimate, viable explanation for the origin of our universe. The computer that is running the simulation is in a different plane of existence, and this mysterious place, whatever or wherever it is, could very well have different rules, different laws than what we have here. Therefore, the Big Bang and our consequent universe are a product of this other place, and that place didn't have to have a beginning. If this concept of explaining the potential origin of our universe isn't every bit, if not more plausible to you than the standard model that you were taught, then unfortunately, there's probably no hope for you. Your critical thinking capability has been removed entirely.
Prior to observation, matter does not seem to exist. Matter seems to be the result of an interaction between consciousness and waves of potential. This has been demonstrated repeatedly in ever more precise versions of the double slit experiment, from the 1920s right up through the present. To understand the double slit experiment, we first need to know how particles behave. If we shoot small objects at a detector, we will see a clump pattern form where they went through the slit and impacted. If we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second clumping duplicated to the right. Now let's look at waves. The waves go through the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the clump pattern. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. When the top of one wave meets the bottom of another, they interfere and cancel each other out. This results in an interference pattern on the back wall. Where the waves reinforce each other, they are at the highest intensity, the bright lines. And where they cancel each other out, there is nothing. So, when we fire objects through two slits, we get two clump patterns, but with waves, we get an interference pattern. An electron can be seen as a very small bit of matter. And when a stream of electrons is fired through one slit, they behave like small objects, forming a single clump pattern. So if we fire these bits of matter through two slits, we should get two clump patterns. But we don't. We get an interference pattern. We fired particles through, but we get a pattern like they're waves, not like little objects. How can pieces of matter create an interference pattern like waves? It doesn't make sense. At first, physicists thought that the electrons were bouncing off each other to create this interference pattern. So, in 1961, Klaus Johnson at the University of Tübingen in Germany modified the experiment to fire the electrons through one at a time. This way, there is no possibility of them bumping into and interfering with each other. But again, the interference pattern was seen. Physicists were perplexed by this.
It somehow seems to have been aware of there being two slits, not one, because it's given rise to this interference pattern. How does one atom do that? Does it split in half? Does it become like a cloud that goes through both?
The path taken by the photon is not an element of reality. We are not allowed to talk about the photon passing through this or this slit. Neither are we allowed to say that the photons pass through both slits. All this kind of language is not applicable.
So they further modified the experiment to get to the bottom of the mystery. They put a measuring device at one slit to see which one the particle actually went through. But when the electrons were being this closely observed, they went back to behaving like little objects and produced a clump pattern, not an interference pattern. Somehow, the act of observation meant that they only went through one slit, not both. The electrons seemed to decide how to behave as if they were aware of being watched. How could this possibly be the case? Could the presence of a conscious observer be influencing the experiment? In 1978, physicist John Wheeler proposed a new way of doing the double-slit experiment that might finally reveal what's really happening. He proposed what is called the delayed choice experiment, in which the decision of whether or not to observe the particles isn't made until after they've gone through the slits, but before they've impacted the detector. This animation is highly simplified, but you get the idea. Here comes the light. It travels through the double-slit barrier as waves. The waves are past the slits but haven't yet hit the detector. And here comes the scientist. His eyes are closed. He's delaying his choice to make this an observed experiment. And then... The results of the experiment didn't solve the mystery. Instead, it got even stranger. Because what was found was that at the moment of decision to observe, the waves became particles. And not only that, but they actually made a record of themselves as having traveled through the slits as particles. Yes, you heard me. Deciding to run the observed experiment causes the waves to become particles, and this causal force extends backwards in time.
What? Our choice of what experiment to do determines the prior state of the electron.
Running the experiment unobserved does not cause this effect.
Well, I mean, what do I say, right? I did make a TikTok video about this. I remember Rich liked it at the beginning, and it was basically a series of this kind of research. It's the decision of what you're going to observe the particle, it determines the prior state of the electron. And meanwhile, Dawkins and Krauss are running around trying to get you to believe that, you know, whatever, some scientific materialist nonsense. They've done this over and over and over with bigger pieces of material of different protons and larger items. And yeah, it's inescapable. And Einstein hated it. It was called spooky action at a distance. And actually, that's quantum entanglement, which I deal with later. But he hated quantum physics and spent the rest of his life trying to reconcile space, time, and matter with this quantum physical reality. It's crazy. Yeah. The observer affects the outcome. You, by perceiving it, affect reality. Can you grasp the levity of this concept? This is no longer speculation. It has been proven over and over through many different kinds of tests. It is scientific fact, and it changes everything. This means that the universe is somehow watching us. It is cognizant of our actions and creates the outcome based on our observation, or intention, or even will. This means that in a chicken and the egg kind of way, we don't exist because of the universe. Rather, it exists because of us. I know that it's hard to wrap your mind around or embrace this idea, as it is radically different from what you were taught. But it's time you try, because it's happening, regardless of if you want to believe it or not. It's possible that nothing exists until we look at it. And this is how computer-simulated worlds work. The system only renders the simulation around the user. The computer doesn't have to render things that aren't being observed. And this idea is death nails for the materialist worldview. It is just not reconcilable in a naturalist way of perceiving reality. It is, however, not only reconcilable in the simulated reality model, it fits it perfectly. It is concisely how computers work and exactly what we would expect to find if we were in a simulation. To such an extent that science is being dragged kicking and screaming to this conclusion.
The next hint at the existence of a matrix can be arrived at from the maximum speed in the universe, the speed of light. Einstein explained that nothing could move faster than photons in a vacuum. The speed of light is a limit and a constant. Additionally, the faster an object moves, the more time slows for that object. At a speed of 300,000 kilometers per second, time stops altogether. That is, you could get to distant galaxies, let's say 3 billion light years away, in the blink of an eye on a spacecraft that had such a speed. According to your time, of course. Those same 3 billion years would pass for a terrestrial observer. So time for a photon stands at 0. It cannot accelerate faster. For this, it would have to slow down time even more, which is impossible as time has already stopped. But why do speed and time have such a relationship? Why are space and time interrelated? The answer suggests a virtual world. The matrix hypothesis assumes that the speed of light is a product of information processing. That is, the world is being updated at a certain rate. It's 1 trillion times faster than any of our supercomputers now, but the principle is the same. Time slows down with an increase in speed. Because virtual reality depends on virtual time, each processing cycle is one tick. When the computer slows, the playing time also slows down a bit. This is very similar to the way in our world that time slows down with increasing speed or near to massive objects, which points to the possible virtuality of our universe.
I have always struggled with the theory of relativity. It's big and confusing and has a lot of moving parts, but the simulation hypothesis has even helped this make sense to me. The idea that time would somehow function differently for something traveling the speed of light made no sense. It might not make sense in the material view, but I digress. We've all seen a video game slow down when there is so much happening at once that it exhausts the computer's processing power and causes a lag effect. This could explain why time slows down for something traveling at the speed of light. See, the computer is designed to process things at terrestrial speeds. So if you were on a rocket ship and got up to the speed of light, the computer would then have to render or generate a fully immersive and convincing simulation at light speed. Worlds, stars, whatever you'd be seeing. And thus it may potentially lag or slow down. If before you got on your rocket, you had synced your watch with someone who stayed back on the Earth, the watch of the person on the Earth wouldn't experience the same effect. All the computer would have to process for them would be you disappearing off into the distance, like a streak if anything. But you'd be experiencing something entirely different and more complex. When you got back to the Earth and compared the time that had passed, with your earthbound friend, time for you on your rocket adventure would have slowed down due to this processing lag effect, while time for the person who hadn't left the Earth would have remained constant.
The most serious proof that we...
So that little part, I kind of regret putting it in there. I was over my head philosophically, scientifically with it. That was my own idea. The lagging thing, I remember Einstein talking about this, and this idea that, like, you would leave and someone would, you go the speed of light and come back and you wouldn't have aged, but they would have. Just doing a thought experiment with it. So imagining that basically you're traveling as fast as you, so fast that the program would struggle with rendering the universe at the speed. It wasn't designed for that speed. It was designed for terrestrial speeds. And so for you, it actually, the time would lag and slow down for you specifically, which brings in this whole other crazy idea that somehow time is happening to all of us and also individually, which is the only way it makes sense that John and Paul and whoever else could leave their bodies and be in different places in time and then come back, and the world, it didn't change. So there's some component of time. I think Philip K. Dick was trying to deal with this, that it's real and it's specific to you, but your time can change separately from other people's times, which is crazy. Anyways, the tree falling in the forest question. The idea, we've always asked that question: if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? The way this would work in the simulation is that the tree doesn't actually even exist until you perceive it or get near enough to it that it would perceive. That basically the game would be rendering the world just outside of your view. So the tree would exist as a potentiality. It's in the programming that it can go from ones and zeros to a tree that the game has to render. But it doesn't do that. So it doesn't matter if it falls over or makes a sound or whatever. None of that's even happening because the game isn't rendering until you get close enough to it that it has to go from potentiality to real. And a lot of this, obviously, I concede very easily that this is, nobody knows for certainly. It's just more thought experiments and trying to explain this reality. But what's interesting is that everybody's asked that question. That's a question people have had for a long time, and the simulation hypothesis actually answers it. Think about it this way. Sure, we know trees have tree rings, right? If you're seeing a tree from the distance, would the game have to create the inside of the tree? No, just a tree. And then as you cut at it, it becomes more immersive, it becomes more real, all the way down to the inside. Now, the one problem with that idea, I mean, this is in theory how it would work, but the one problem with that idea is that's based on a computer system that is finite, because we are finite. We're finite consciousness, we're finite brain capacity, finite intellect, finite resources. God is infinite. So his computer could handle all of it, and it could be creating all of this reality all at once. It wouldn't matter because, he's not going to run out of processing power. Nor am I saying that it's actually a computer. I don't know what it is. We made computers. What does God have? Something much more complex. And again, since he's not finite, I don't think that it would be an issue. But I have always kind of made the joke in my mind that the universe didn't exist in the way that it exists now. And it's just as our technology increases and as we start to see further, more of the universe, gets built, because now it has to be seen. So is the universe expanding because our technology is expanding? Maybe. It's complicated. Look at these messages really quick. The tree is like Schrodinger's cat. It potentially exists. It's perfect, Joe. It's exactly right. It exists in a state of potentiality. Okay, let's get back to this.
We live in a matrix simulation is quantum entanglement. Well, what is it exactly? A photon flying through space can be considered to be rotating. That is, it has something called spin. In fact, photons don't really rotate, but this is a simplified model. So, Physicists believe that, most likely, before a particle is observed, it does not even have a specific spin. That is, no one is looking at the photon yet, so it cannot determine which way to turn, and is considered to be in a superposition of uncertainty. It would seem that it's difficult for nature to calculate the rotation of each and every particle, and so it uses a simplified scheme for this. But again, when an observer appears, the particle becomes physically more complex and more real, and its rotation is calculated. An experiment was proposed by Albert Einstein, which was to test the Copenhagen interpretation for strength. Some very interesting results were obtained from this experiment. The essence of it goes like this. If an atom, for example, cesium, emits 2 photons in different directions, then because of the law of conservation of momentum, their state will be interconnected. If one of them rotates from the bottom up, then the other will rotate from the top down, always. They will always have spin in opposite directions. This is called quantum entanglement. But remember, the photons do not know which way to spin before they are observed. So in this case, if the fact of observation made one choose one of the options, its tangled partner must then immediately have a spin in the opposite direction. That is, by the very fact of our observation of one photon, we affect the spin of the other photon, even though we did not observe the second photon. And the second photon is required not only to find a spin, but to do so instantly, even if the photons are at a great distance from each other. That means that if the entangled photons were somehow sent even to different ends of the universe, this information about which way it should be spinning should somehow fly or jump across the universe to its partner at several quadrillion times faster than the speed of light, so that it basically instantly gets its spin. This is incredible. It violates the very laws of physics as we know them, because nothing can move faster than photons in a vacuum. However, the second photon still manages somehow to get this information in 0 time. But how? How does the partner entangled photon learn with such speed that a colleague was observed, and so know to spin in some particular direction? Einstein was convinced that such an instantaneous connection was impossible, and he assumed that when entangled photons emerge from the atom, they already contain information about the past and know which direction they will rotate if or when they are observed. That is, the observer does not change things but only recognizes the spin of the particle. But 17 years after Einstein's death, it turned out that this singular, unparalleled genius was mistaken in this case. That's right, Einstein was wrong. To prove the presence or absence of information about the direction in which the particle rotates after observation, Irish physicist John Bell set up a very complex and ingenious experiment. The results were astounding. Bell proved that the entangled particle does not have a clue before it is observed in which direction it will spin. The photon randomly chooses a spin only after measurement, and this is proof that entangled elementary particles can transmit information to each other much faster than the speed of light. The experiment gave us more new questions than answers. In 2008, a group of researchers from the University of Geneva decided to clarify the speed of information exchanged between entangled particles. They were able to separate from each other 2 entangled photons at a distance of 18 kilometers. They measured one particle and recorded how fast the second reacted to it. The technology they used allowed them to measure a delay time of up to 100,000 times faster than the speed of light. But there wasn't even such a minuscule pause as this. It turned out that, as measured, the photons somehow were able to transmit information at least 100,000 times faster than the speed of light, and maybe even instantly. Perhaps Einstein was right when he said that instant communication in the physical world is impossible. But if we substitute a virtual reality in place of the physical world, the instant connection is easily explained. When 2 photons become entangled, their programs are combined to jointly see the 2 points. This combination of programs will respond for both pixels, if we can call them that, no matter where they are. At the moment of measuring one particle, its program randomly chooses one of the spins, and the program of the second immediately reacts. It becomes clear why the distance isn't important. The processor does not need to go to the pixel to ask it to spin, even if the so-called screen is large, even as large as a universe.
It is vital that we fully understand how this universe, being a virtual construct, finally reconciles the mysterious workings of quantum physics with reality.
The results confirmed that non-locality was actually real. What Schrödinger had called entanglement, and was defended by Bohr but ridiculed by Einstein, was a fundamental property of nature. Instant correspondence can be seen between two particles that are separated by unlimited distance in space, and this only makes sense if the world is a virtual construct. In a virtual world, distance doesn't limit correspondence, since all points in a simulation are equidistant with respect to the source of the simulation. For example, in a computer game, all points on the screen are at equal distance with respect to the processor, and the same effect can be seen in our world. If our universe is a simulation projected onto a three-dimensional screen, then its processor would be equidistant to all points in the universe. Non-locality, one of the biggest problems in physics, is easily solved by the simulation hypothesis. Space seems to be an illusion created by the virtual construct.
Quantum entanglement and non-locality are intimidating words with profound implications, but are easily explainable and understandable in the simulation hypothesis model. Which is a point I want to make as I close out this nature of reality argument. You'd think that a preponderance of evidence would be sufficient to prove a point, but in this case, it is not. There is something strange about this simulation. Whoever or whatever seems to have made it in such a way that we are forced to choose or believe what this place is and how it got here. It's like the author is hiding just out of view. It seems like the programmer may have gone to great lengths to remain mostly anonymous. This is such great chat, you guys. Yeah, what Mitch said. Going to look, dreams tell you that time is an illusion somehow. I've dreamt about exact instances, like the feelings, the people I didn't even know. We've all had that dream. Mitch told me the story about basically virtually putting his hands over somebody. God told him to do it. Not to tell too much of your awesome story, and he was praying for the boy remotely. It's an illusion. When you research quantum field theory, the idea is that there's three total Lego bricks that build this reality: 2 quarks and a gluon, I believe. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I could call them flibbits and bebops, but it doesn't matter. We don't know what these things are anyways, but there's 3 total things, and they make up, we're on a lattice. This reality is some sort of 3-dimensional lattice, and everything in this reality is a combination of those 3 protons or whatever. And so air, oxygen is made of it, bone is made of it, water is made of it. It's all made of the same thing, which means that literally myself and this table in front of me and this wall, we're all made of the same thing. The gaps in between us, space is an illusion. It's all the same thing, which is why God is like, don't curse people. Don't curse people. Bless people. Bless them with your mouth. Your vocal cords create a resonance. It affects this reality. You got to be careful what you say and do. And the human quantum entanglement thing, yes, the way that this is simplified down, or boiled down to a way that's understandable, is that every one of these particles is the same, is equidistant, spaced from the source, whatever source is. Like when Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is inside of you and it's all around you, like, yeah, we are a subset of the kingdom of heaven. It's everywhere. It's around us. And that's the real world. And this is the Matrix. And if you were to talk to Mario about go way up there in that corner and get that brick, Mario. He'd be like, going to do it. But in this computer screen, it's an illusion how far away he is. He's just part of the same coding. Travel. It's actually one of the reasons I don't love video games. Like the new ones, you got to go really far on these adventures. And I'm like, you're not going anywhere. It's an illusion. So anyways, yeah, human entanglement works. Humans, everything. It's all connected to the same source information. And Einstein, I love how he said this genius, this singular, most brilliant person that ever lived was actually wrong. Einstein was kind of full of it. Like he got some things right, but he was propped up by the media. It was fake news. Nikola Tesla had the real information. He was talking about how reality actually worked. But the Westinghouse, CBS, elite group got behind Einstein because he was pushing scientific materialism. Everything's a product of space, time, and matter. It's all it is. It's what it is. And they're like, yeah, he disproved God. So they got behind him, but it was not science. It was pseudoscience, unfortunately. So yeah, of course he was wrong about a lot of it. And his spooky action at a distance, he didn't like it. He's like, how can things from unlimited distances be communicating faster than the speed of light? Because he was thinking about it like this. He was like, this quantum particle is over here, and this quantum particle is over here. How are they talking? Go right. Are you going to go left or right? I'm going to go left. Go left. That's what he thought was happening. How can they talk faster than the speed of light? They can't. Well, they're not. They're not even actually apart, and they're connected to the same source. It's like 2 pixels on the screen. The source is the same. Your computer, it was never like, oh, that corner of the screen is really far away from this corner of the screen. From the computer's perspective, it's all the same information. It's crazy beautiful. And when I have all these rants about the nature of reality, I did that 2 nights ago, and I get pissed off because we were lied to, and they really got us good. Because it's hard for us to believe these things. We're all adults, and we're like, this is crazy. This is not, and like we're believers, and we believe in the spiritual realm. We believe, what does it say in Romans? That for by faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, right? We believe that Jesus is somehow the word of God, and somehow he created this reality and was in this reality. Like, we're willing to believe in talking donkeys, right? We believe these things, but we're like, the reality that we believe in is different than the one that we were taught. I have a hard time with that. And I'm not being critical. I'm frustrated because, yeah, my deep subconscious probably grapples with 400 billion years and dinosaurs 800 million years ago and whatever, because we were lied to. And it sucks because it was a level of our consciousness that's sub our regular consciousness. So anyways, make sure when you're raising your children that you keep them full of wonder about this reality, and don't tell them some line about how we know how it works. We don't. We're just starting to figure it out. Anyways, here we go. Oh, back to talking about the filmmaking part. Pretty sure. Okay, so this is another one of those video game songs that I found. And from being a former hip hop guy, this "Who's the Man" thing over Interstellar, somebody said, Beth, I hope she's still in there. She said it reminded her of Interstellar. I think it was her. Was it Steph? I think it was Beth. Anyways, I use clips from Interstellar to show this next scene. But in this movie, I get to like play around with all these ideas. Aliens are demons. Islam is potentially disinformation from the dark side. It's a counterfeit. That's what I cover in this next couple parts coming up. But I've talked about this before, about the creator has intentionally hiding himself, so we have to choose to believe in him. So I'm talking about that there. And then this "Who's the Man" scene. We start to we're going to start to identify. We talked about what reality is. Now we're going to start to identify the who done it. This is the who, what, when, where, why. You'd think that a preponderance of evidence would be sufficient to prove a point. But in this case, it is not. There is something strange about this simulation. Whoever or whatever seems to have made it in such a way that we are forced to choose or believe what this place is and how it got here. It's like the author is hiding just out of view. It seems like the programmer may have gone to great lengths to remain mostly anonymous. But I want to know who or what is responsible for this thing. And is it possible for us to know who made this? Are there clues, or is there maybe even evidence of authorship?
So are you saying we're all just, there's some entity that programmed the universe and we're just expressions of their code?
Okay. Well, the more interesting aspect to that question is, who's the programmer and where's the computer?
I got myself locked down in the pen. I ain't got a friend, so here I go again. I gotta get my props up and earn my...
Before we dive into the potential identity of the programmer discussion, I have to address the she science-approved theories of this being either an ancient ancestry simulation made by super advanced future humans, or that the simulation is made by, you guessed it, aliens. Here's the problem. In order for either of these to have occurred, there would have had to have been a Big Bang type event, where everything comes out of nothing, including the laws of physics and thermodynamics, and then naturalistic planet and stellar formation would have had to have occurred, which science surprisingly doesn't have a great answer for. Then animate objects would have had to arise out of inanimate material. Then information would have had to have come from a non-information source, i.e. DNA. Then macroevolution would have had to have happened, and yada yada yada. But let's be honest about what is behind these theories. Science is so entirely sold out to the Darwinian materialist model that they've been dogmatically following for 2 centuries that they've just proposed a couple of theories that circumvent the need for a god or creator type. And not because these ideas make the most sense, but really because they don't want there to be a god. One can only assume that some of their anti-God fervor stems from a general disdain toward religion, which I actually totally get and also have. Maybe some of it has to do with not wanting to be held accountable for their actions, which is understandable. Or maybe they had something terrible happen to them and they can't reconcile how God would have permitted it. Regardless of intent, these kinds of explanations for who programmed this reality are cop-outs. They are circular reasoning at best and logical fallacies at worst. Those of you who can't swim in the philosophical and theological shark-infested waters of world religion might want to go ahead and get out now. Because I'm doing it. I'm going there. I'm willing to go where I have to look for answers. I mean, if we are in a simulation and humans have been looking up and in and around for answers for thousands of years, you'd like to think that someone got it right, or even close to explaining this place as a virtual reality construct. We need to start at the beginning. Let's look at the origin stories or creation accounts of the world's 4 major religions to see if any of them are compatible with the digital Big Bang theory. Hopefully you remember it, the idea being the Big Bang actually happened, but the origination source was a computer or something like it that's in another plane of existence. Just to be clear, at this point we are only looking at the validity of their respective origination story as it relates to the simulation hypothesis, not the entire religion as a whole. Skepticism's first opponent, ranked fourth with a world population of 6.9%. Buddhism. The universe always existing is not compatible with the digital Big Bang theory. In the simulation hypothesis model, there is a clear beginning. And if you look further into the Buddhist stance on origins, it is not vital to this religion. Buddhists prefer to distance themselves from the subject and would rather lean on the sciences for information relating to the origins of the universe. An understandable stance, but not the kind of clues to authorship that I was looking for. Skepticism's next opponent, ranking third with a world population of 15%. Hinduism.
Before time began, there was no heaven, no earth, no space, just nothing. The waves of vast dark ocean lapped on the edges of this nothingness, and a giant cobra floated in the waters. Lying asleep in the snake's coils was Lord Vishnu, and the snake kept him safe and he slept really peacefully. Slowly, a sound started. Om. It grew louder and filled the emptiness. It throbbed with energy and drove the nothingness away. Lord Vishnu woke up, and a magnificent lotus flower grew from his navel. Right in the middle of the flower sat Brahma. Lord Vishnu told Brahma to set to work and create a world. And still, sitting in the flower, Brahma calmed the wind, stilled the waves, and brought peace. Brahma split the lotus flower, making 3 different parts: the heavens, the earth, and the skies.
So there was nothing, and waves of a dark ocean lapped against the nothing. Vishnu was sleeping in a cobra, and a flower grew out. Whatever. That story is all well and good, but it is also not compatible with the digital origin explanation. Alright, so I was obviously having fun with this. I haven't watched this in so long. Okay. This is important, you guys. This movie is actually really steeped in apologetics. People go, why your God? There's all these gods and you're racist because you don't believe in every religion. Look at the origin stories. People have a hard time with the flood and Adam and Eve, God speaking this reality into existence. They're like, that's stupid. This is it. I went straight to the source. Like if something made this reality, okay, you'd like to think that when there's 8 billion people on the earth, the God is represented, right? You'd like to think that it's represented, not died off, like Nietzsche would say, or whatever. So you look at these 4 world religions, right? The 4 biggest ones. Like if it's like some weird Aboriginal thing and that's their God and we're all hosed, like that's a problem. Because nobody ever knew that it was actually the like stone bird God that created this reality. And you got to like sacrifice your children to it so it doesn't cause a solar eclipse or whatever they teach. Buddhism doesn't teach there's a beginning. Steady state universe, it is, it always was. There's no genesis. There's no how it happened. They punt on it. They actually say, we're not scientists. We're like a life coaching system. So we don't know. Well, who knows? It's always been here. Who cares? Balance. Hinduism. People love this religion. They just think it's great with all the cows and the blue guys with all the arms. And like, this is their beginning story. There was nothing. There was nothing. And an ocean lapped on the waves of the nothing. And Vishnu was in a snake and the snake in the lotus. Like, this is their version. And people like read the comments in this video. They're like, this totally makes sense. It's totally reality. All right. So then we get into Islam. And you guys know my take on Islam. It's close. It's close. It's like whoever's behind Islam knew how this reality was made. And it's like a computer simulation. So it's close. And then the world's biggest religion, still the Judeo-Christian model, obviously is what I would adhere to. But just looking at like the feasibility of the origin story and the sacred text for these religions, Judaism knocks it out of the park. Christianity, Judaism, the Judeo-Christian model. Second to Islam, which you'll see why here in a minute. But all this Mike Tyson stuff, I had a good time too. It took a long time, but there we go.
Skepticism's next opponent, ranking second, accounting for an impressive 1/4 of the world's population, Islam. Well, Dan, we've got a good one here today. Skepticism is facing its most challenging opponent yet. The Muslim faith is the fastest growing religion in the world. Don't be surprised to see Islam come out swinging.
Allah Azza wa Jal, in the beginning it was Him as a being and there was nothing else. And there's a hadith in Muslim that says that Allah Azza wa Jal was there and there was nothing else besides Him. He wanted others or creation, He wanted a creation to know Him. So He created the creation. So the first thing He created was the pen. Again, that's a hadith in Muslim, that the first thing Allah created was the pen, and He created the tablet. Now what is the tablet? The tablet is a large piece of stone or something similar to it, and He told the pen to write. And He told it to write everything that would come into existence, everything of His irada, of His will, whatever He's going to will. And He told it to write everything about the creation, whatever is going to happen. So every minute detail to the last detail was all written on this tablet. And this tablet is something that the ulama of tafsir, they've debated where this tablet is. And some have said that it's on the fourth heaven, some have said that it's above all the heavens. And then there is a debate whether anyone else apart from Allah has got access to this tablet.
Wow, Rick, you were right. Islam really brought it. Enough of that. But seriously, if you saw that coming, then kudos. That creation account is entirely compatible with the digital Big Bang model. The creator writing on something that looks like a stone tablet, but no one is sure exactly what it is or where it is, that existed in another plane of existence. The programmer planning out all of creation before creating it by writing out the instructions on whatever this tablet is. What you'll see here in a minute is this story is actually a spin-off of an older religious origin model, the Jewish creation account. And it's really not surprising how closely they resemble each other. The Muslim faith began centuries after Judaism, and if you've studied the histories of Islam and the Judeo-Christian religions, you know that their stories have intertwined throughout their existence. And while they share many of the same historical figures and similarities, they are starkly different belief systems and are not compatible. It is clear that the Judeo-Christian God named Yahweh or Jehovah and the Islamic God named Allah are two different beings.
I won't go into this right now, as it would take time that we don't have, nor is this video the place for it. I will, however, concede that it is entirely possible that the entity we know as Allah could have either been there for the creation of the universe, or was at minimum privy to how it happened. What do you guys think of that? Michael Payton, my brother from another mother. That whole mecha cube, which looks exactly like the D-Wave quantum computer. I mean, just like what a lot of Islam is. It's like the same story, just, you know, one side defends one god and one side defends the other, but it's the same information. Right at the end times, the Antichrist is in Islam is their lamb, or the beast is the good guy and the lamb is the bad guy. I forget specifically, but yeah, that video is from, I had to dive. I actually had a couple really scary nights making this. I'd make it at like 2 in the morning, till like 2 or 3 in the morning. And when I was making that video, I was horrified, absolutely like shivering. But it's a creation account and it's glorifying Allah, and that is Allah killing all of his enemies in wicked blood, because that's the kind of God he is. So it's crazy. That's wild. Anyways, yeah, they get that really close, and I totally think the computer is Mecca, and I think the tablet and the pen is like a stylus. Whatever. I think Lucifer was around for the creation. So another 810 sneak.
Well, it ain't no use sit and wonder why, baby. Even you don't know by now. And it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, baby.
We've now covered all but one of the leading programmer candidates, the last remaining being the Judeo-Christian model, Robert Zimmerman. Despite its well-detailed hardships, Judaism is arguably the world's oldest surviving religion, dating back 3,500 years and still practiced in much the same way today as it was during its inception. Meanwhile, Christianity, which came from Judaism, is modern day's largest religion. So between the two, we have the oldest and largest faith-based systems. If you are still watching this video, I will assume you can understand the words coming out of my stupid mouth. I will then assume that you speak English, and will lastly assume that you've probably at some point heard the 6 days of creation account detailed in the book of Genesis. What I doubt you've heard, though, is what the Jewish tradition teaches about what God speaking creation into existence actually means. It is something that rabbis have taught for millennia, but may actually for the first time make sense in context of the simulation hypothesis.
We call the Hebrew language the DNA of creation. What does that mean, that the Hebrew language is the DNA of creation? It means like this. The major premise we have as Jews is that Hashem created the world by first creating the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and the numbers 0 through 9, and by combining letters together, he created the reality of everything that we know.
Whoa, wait. We have to hear that again.
Is that Hashem created the world by first creating the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and the numbers 0 through 9, and by combining letters together, he created the reality of everything that we know.
You guys, just imagine being me, and I've worked on this for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and I'm like trying to figure out how this whole thing works and piecing it together, and I find this Jewish person talking about how God speaking this reality into existence means that he used the Hebrew alphabet and the number 0 through 9, and he arranged the letters to create this reality. That's computer coding. I'm not going to get into that, but you guys, I'm making this documentary. Like, the Torah creates this reality. How does this work? I had to research how computer programming worked, which I did. You'll see I get into this. When I heard him say this, it's crazy. It's crazy. Did you get that? According to this tradition, the Creator first made the Hebrew alphabet and the numbers 0 through 9, and by combining the letters together, He created our reality. This is how computers work. This is how programmers write software code.
And the main thing with programming languages to understand is what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking what is called human readable code. So you actually type out with a text editor or one of these compilers, you type out what you want the code to do, and then that compiler, or what's called an interpreter, turns that into ones and zeros, ons and offs. That's all the computer cares about.
Okay, we all know that computers operate using ones and zeros. But how does a computer take human readable text, or alpha characters, and turn them into ones and zeros?
But how can we do the same thing for letters? We understand numbers can become numbers, but how do we turn letters into binary numbers? Every single key on your keyboard has a number associated with it. Every single character that you can type can be translated into a decimal number. For example, the character capital A on your keyboards becomes the number 65. This is a standard and is globally recognized. It's part of the ASCII table. Every letter, every symbol, and every number on your keyboard has a corresponding number associated with it. So A is always 65.
Computers turn letters into numbers by employing a computer language named ASCII, the American Standard Code for Information Interchange. With this computer language, every character actually represents a number, and that number is then understood by the computer as a series of ones and zeros. And the ancient language of Hebrew works the same way. In Hebrew, every letter has a numerical representation, just like ASCII. That's right. I am proposing that Hebrew is the first computer language, and is, as the rabbis have taught, the precise language that the programmer used to write out the code that creates the simulated reality.
Hey, Max. Lenny Meyer. Sorry, put it out. So, what do you do?
I work with computers, math.
Math? What kind of math?
Number theory, research mostly.
No way, I work with numbers myself. I mean, not traditional. I work with the Torah. Amazing! You know, Hebrew's all math. It's all numbers. You know that? Yeah, look. The ancient Jews used Hebrew as their numerical system, man. Each letter's a number. Like the Hebrew A, Aleph, it's 1. B, Bet, it's 2. You understand? But look at this. The numbers are interrelated. Like take the Hebrew word for father. Av, Aleph, Bet. 1, 2 equals 3. All right? Hebrew word for mother, Aim, Aleph, Mem. 1, 40 equals 41. Sum of 3 and 41, 44. All right? Now, Hebrew word for child. All right? Mother, father, child. Yelad. That's 10, 30, and 4. 44. Torah is just a long string of numbers. Some say that it's a code sent to us from God.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So if we are in a computer-generated reality, and Hebrew is the language the program is written in, is it possible the Torah is the software coding? The precisely arranged series of letters that creates our reality. The human-readable text that the computer turns into ones and zeros. The source code.
Written all
All right. I understand. Sorry to cut it off, guys. I get really excited about this last few minutes as I was starting to get better at filmmaking, but I really feel like God was guiding me with this. There was things that lined up that I would have never imagined. You know, I watched Pi decades ago, 20 years ago, and loved it. It affected my brain, just like the Truman Show and The Matrix and They Live. You want to know how you make the operating system? Get those 4 movies and sprinkle in some Bible code and simulation hypothesis and blend it up with crazy life experience, and there you go. Anyways, I didn't even realize I wanted the never-ending story there. I wanted the 80s never-ending story. I didn't even realize that the Torah, if you remember the movie The Never-Ending Story, the book that they're reading is the reality. You read the book and you live that reality, and like that God guided me to put the never-ending story song in there. It's so multidimensional because the Torah is the never-ending story, right? I loved that wordplay. It's eternal. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and everything that was made by the Word. It's eternal. It's God's eternal Word, and it's a never-ending story. And it's also the story of the child who reads the book and is in the story, right? So we're in the never-ending story, and the book we're reading is the Torah. Come on. It's crazy, right? Okay. Father, Abba, right? A-B, 1, 2. A-B, 1, 2. Beautiful. Like the first and the second letter. Ava, or what, mom. And then so child, Yelid, is where we get the word child from. It's the same etymology. We call our kids child because of this. You think the Jewish people, the rabbis, were down there figuring out how to make this word puzzle work? Do you guys ever do a Sudoku? Like, yes. Have you ever tried to write a Sudoku? Much harder. It's hard to figure one out. It's really hard to write one. Think they were trying to figure this out? This is the word of God. This is God's language. And the thing about it is, I don't even think God was trying to make it this multifactorial. I think he is multifactorial. We're beta. We're 1 and 0. We're binary. We're 2D, right? He's 3D. I mean, obviously we're 3D. He's whatever D. But I think all of his thoughts are this complicated. If you could possibly probe his mind, like God willing, we get to spend eternity with him, and just his brain, I know, works on all these levels always. He works alphanumeric. Of course, his language does. It's beautiful. Last thing I would want to show you is when I go into this edit, this is the kind of thing that was happening that I didn't mean to. Listen to these. I know music's important. I keep telling you that I try to make it a big part of what I'm doing as a musician, and I just love to try and marry it. But listen to how this song turns into this other song. It's the same note, and I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't have the ability to. I'm not good like this. This is crazy. But listen to how this song becomes the other one. That's it right there. That's right. I am proposing that Hebrew is the first computer language and is, as the rabbis have taught, the precise language that the programmer used to write out the code that creates the simulated reality. Two totally separate songs that I didn't mean to have line up like that, and they did. So God is good. There's a bunch of little things like that happen. Here we go. In a computer-generated reality, and Hebrew is the language the program is written in. Is it possible the Torah is the software coding? The precisely arranged series of letters that creates our reality. The human-readable text that the computer turns into ones and zeros. The source code. All right, I understand this is an extraordinary claim, and I can only imagine what some of you must be feeling or thinking right now. But this idea has merit. It has scientific, statistically significant support, and is in fact not a new idea. It's just new to us.
And therefore today, humanity is coming back again and again to that same perception that our world is merely a certain kind of a relatively small reality among different other existing forms. If not in matter, then in potential. If not in potential, then like in the brain or in computers. That we're a kind of an expression of a certain program, that the whole of reality is a program. In short, there's much to say about it, and much will be said about it in the future. But according to the wisdom of Kabbalah, which is my profession, on behalf of which I can speak, the Torah, it's called the general program for operating the whole of reality. The Torah, it's called the general program for operating the whole of reality.
This understanding of the relationship between the Torah and creation is not a new concept to rabbis in the know. It is actually the esoteric manner in which Kabbalah has explained the workings of reality for centuries. And it predates the concept of computers or a simulation by such a significant amount of time that if you were being honest, you have to surrender a level of validity to it. While some of history's great philosophers have dabbled with ideas in this vein, obviously from a perspective of logic or reason, the Jewish people had to accept this information on faith. Their God told them that this was the nature of our reality, and they have held on to this tradition since that time. Look, I know that this is a huge leap, and that the Hebrew alphabet having a numerical value, Jewish mystics teaching for centuries that we are in a simulation that was created by using the Torah as the program or operating system, isn't enough to validate the notion that the Torah is the coding that creates this virtual reality. So is there any other evidence that might substantiate this remarkable claim? Well, the most compelling clue is also the most controversial. It is a centuries-old and fiercely debated phenomenon known as the Bible Code or the Torah Code.
For billions of people, the Bible is the most important book ever written. But what if there is more to its message than the written word? A code hidden deep within the Bible's text.
These things were secret. The idea of hidden codes in the Bible was something you didn't speak about.
Now, are these secrets finally coming to light?
If the codes are real, it would be completely mind-blowing.
Every major event in world history, every major figure in world history appears to be encoded in the Bible.
I believe the Bible code issue is nonsense from beginning to end.
The overwhelming majority of scientists who have studied the phenomenon have come to the conclusion that there's no basis for it whatever.
All my instincts as a scientist and also as a Jew spoke against the possibility of such a phenomenon. Yet despite this, the work of Whitson, Rips, and Rosenberg presents a very strong scientific evidence that under intense scientific experimentation, the phenomenon is shown to exist.
Close examination of this evidence shows it to be completely subjective and arbitrary, completely reliant on faith in the honesty of the people who did it, and that disqualifies it as being scientific evidence.
We could watch clips and read articles both for and against the Torah codes for hours. It is understandably a very divisive topic. If it's true, then it pretty much proves that the author of the Torah is outside of time and space and has infinite resources. If it's fraudulent, then it should be discounted entirely, and all the negative sentiment it garners is justified. What is the Torah code? It is a secondary layer of information encoded in the primary readable text of the Torah. Information that some claim details much of, if not the entire history of this reality. And what is the Torah? It is the 5 books given to Moses by God on Mount Sinai 3,300 years ago. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. An important distinction between these books and other canon in Scripture is that while other books were written by men that were reportedly inspired by God, tradition states that these 5 books were actually written by God. Well, technically, God sequentially dictated each letter to Moses, who transcribed this information into the scrolls that made up the original Torah. This letter-by-letter dictation is the practice that highly trained scribes have used from that time into modernity. There are in fact more than 20 very strict procedures that scribes are mandated to adhere to when copying the Torah, including a dire warning which states that if even one letter is added or removed during copying, this action could cause the destruction of the entire universe. While this was a sobering and ominous dictate and was vital in preserving the accuracy of the original text, is it possible that this warning was actually referring to corrupted software coding? Where the Torah came from and how it was accurately preserved over time was important for us to cover, as it deservedly comes up when discussing the legitimacy of the Bible code. Often, when first hearing of the code, the initial response is, sorry, Morgan Freeman saying bullshit's funny. Okay, so a couple things. People are like, you can't trust the Bible. Bible is multiple interpretations, multiple people have touched it, whatever. They just haven't researched it. Like the Jews, the rabbis, the scribes were very studious at copying the Torah. Now I understand the other books can get a little bit weird or whatever. But the Dead Sea Scrolls show them as valid. But literally, the Jewish scribes were taught that if they just left out one letter, added one punctuation, they would destroy the entire universe. So they took this very seriously. They obviously believed in God, so they preserved it. And this is why I'm only a fan of the Torah codes, the Bible codes being in the Torah. Grant Jeffrey, what was his name? Yaakov Ramsel did the Genesis Factor. There's like other people that did, New Testament codes. They may or may not be valid, but I'm only like, I can only get behind the actual Torah codes because of how meticulous they were able to keep the string of letters in order. And then I threw that joke in there that not the joke, but that idea, like if you corrupt the software coding, we've all had computers crap out on us. So that's funny that does that. So I wanted to show you this, then I'll get back to it. The horse, the guy, the glitch of the horse is pretty funny. And then I want to show you what the blue screen is. One last A10 thing. Is it possible that this warning was actually referring to corrupted software coding? A fatal exception has occurred at A10 Yahweh A through Z. A10, right? Yahweh, first and the last, whatever. Those are little Easter eggs that most people aren't going to see. Where the Torah came from and how it was accurately preserved over time was important for us to cover, as it deservedly comes up when discussing the legitimacy of the Bible code. Often, when first hearing of the code, the initial response is, then the next is the Bible has had so many translations and has changed so much over its history that there is no way that the code could work. Well, researchers agree that the code is only truly valid if it is done in the original Hebrew, and that version of the Torah is remarkably close to what Moses brought down from Mount Sinai. How does the code work? While it is entirely possible that there are multiple layers or dimensions to this coding that have yet to be discovered, the code that has been found is in a format known as an equidistant letter skip code, or ELS code. ELS codes work by skipping equal letter intervals in a text to reveal new information. By using this technique, thousands of codes in the Torah have been uncovered. Information that describes in detail events that have occurred throughout man's history. information pertaining to things that occurred after the Torah was written. The great Jewish sage, the Vilna Gaon, who lived in the 18th century and studied the code phenomenon throughout his life, was quoted as saying, "Everything that has ever been or ever will be is encoded in the Torah." Isaac Newton, the grandfather of modern science, who was totally mesmerized and consumed by the codes, went as far as to say that the entire universe is encoded in the Torah. While I highly encourage you to research the codes and the information they have uncovered, I am going to cover two of my favorites and then we need to move on. The first is in what code researchers refer to as a table, which just means a cluster of related codes in a small area. A lot of times they are found inside a section of the Torah that on the surface text is also relevant to the coded information, which is totally the case here. In the book of Numbers, chapter 20, Moses is instructed by God to tell the rock at Horeb to bring forth water in order to meet the needs of the Hebrew people wandering the desert. But Moses, who had a temper, disobeyed God and struck the rock with his staff, and not just once, but twice. What event do you suppose is found encoded intersecting this text?
Here's the finding of the Twin Towers attack, the attack of the planes on the towers, the Twin Towers. And here we can see this finding, but let us see this cover. You can see here the word mitkefet, which is right in the down. You go here, mem or mitkefet, mem taf kuf pei taf, which is attack, mitkefet, atkef. Very close to English, attack, להתקיף, התקף, מתקפת, and Migdalei, you can see here Migdalei, the towers of התאומים, twins, the twin towers, and attack, and here you have the matos, the word matos, in Hebrew plane. So, in this area, which happened to be the story in the Torah in Numbers about taking the stick, you can see Moses took the stick and was hitting the rock, here is the Sela rock, twice. So hitting the rock twice, coming exactly with the story of the planes, we hit the Twin Towers twice.
The amount of accurate, applicable information related to 9/11 found in this small... Sorry guys, that's a powerful part and I shouldn't have stopped it, but because you might not see my other video I made on this, I believe I made a discovery that no one else has talked about, and also it's just, I don't know, when I saw it, I don't know. You guys remember Wuzzles? You remember Wuzzles, the little puzzle, like the pictograph puzzles? Look at this. Look at this, with these words and how they're arranged. This is exactly how the table is arranged, right? You've got the word attack is vertical. You've got this little tiny twin building down here, right? And then you've got the towers here, and it's being intersected by an airplane. This is what I'm trying to tell you guys about multidimensional. This is unbelievable. I'm getting goosebumps right now just looking at this again. I made a video on it. It's called 9/11 and the Torah code. This is unbelievable. Look at this. Attack and towers are almost the same size. They're almost twin-sized buildings. And the word airplane is intersecting it. Wait till you see the angle that this plane hits. It's the same angle as the word airplane. And the airplane intersects it, and then this second tower falls down. It's falling down. Yeah. Make the video. I'm like, this is going to go viral. Everybody in the world's going to want to talk about this. Nobody wants to talk about it. I don't know. I can't tell you anything more important than this in my life that I've discovered. We're in a simulated reality. The Torah is the operating system. It's confirmed 9 times to Sunday, and the Bible code about 9/11 is a wuzzle. It's a pictograph of the information. The information is in the actual Bible with the word twice. Moses struck the rock twice because he was angry. He could have hit it once, but he was mad. He hit it twice. He disobeyed God, hit it twice. If you've watched Jonathan Cahn and this idea of 9/11 having been a judgment, he hits it twice. The airplane intersects the word towers. It falls down. It's too much. It's too much. Let's get this information out somehow. Small area with an appropriately themed.
There's a cellar rock twice, so hitting the rock twice, coming exactly with the story of the planes. We hit the Twin Towers twice.
The amount of accurate, applicable information related to 9/11 found in this small area with an appropriately themed topical text is truly phenomenal. The probability of this table occurring by chance is less than 1 in 10 million. The second example that I want you to see shows the multi-dimensional nature of the coding. While most research in this field only looks for codes utilizing the equidistant letter skip method, look at the profound manner in which the information in this table is encoded.
Supporters say one of the latest revelations of the code concerns the event that took place on February 1st, 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster.
I'll start with a find from Professor Rips about Space Shuttle Columbia. Columbia, they will mourn, a devouring fire. Professor Rips did not see this red ELS. He showed it to a friend who immediately said, this looks like a space shuttle. What if there was something interesting on this other wing? And it's facing down, so this must be the left wing. And sure enough, it says, consumed by fire.
So this is where you can see it like actually being a pictograph as well. This layout shows that there are potentially unlimited ways that the information may be encoded in the Torah. In fact, computer science is looking intensely into ways for data to be stored in the multidimensional fashion of DNA. A lot of what geneticists used to refer to as junk DNA was actually just information arranged in a way that wasn't recognized initially. And this could be exactly what we are looking at with the information in the Torah. So why is the information in there? And what does it mean? Are we all just playing out some predetermined cosmic script? Is the programmer using a parlor trick to try and impress the users? Or does the presence of the code quantum physically explain how this system is a truly self-determining free will simulation?
Scientific evidence, hard scientific evidence, that consciousness itself could not only create the reality around us, but what it's doing is, as you're observing the reality around you, you're collapsing something called the wave function, which is a probability wave. And the act of observation collapses that probability wave into a reality that could be one of a myriad of realities. It's rather similar if you're playing a first-person computer game. You know, in my generation, it was very much Lara Croft and Tomb Raider. Effectively, Lara Croft on the screen has a myriad of opportunities within her life, within the game, because every opportunity and every decision she makes, or the game player makes, is programmed within the hard drive of the computer or within the CD-ROM. Imagine a universe like that. And again, this is not crazy stuff. There was a paper published, I think, in 2007 or 2008 by Stephen Hawking and his associate Thomas Hertog from CERN. And they have something called the top-down hypothesis of particle physics. And again, this is Stephen Hawking, one of the world's leading theoretical physicists. And his model suggests that literally every outcome of every decision is already digitally programmed within something. And by our active observation and by our choices, we collapse that particular reality.
I don't want to stop. There's a lot of momentum here, but you understand that this particle physicist is talking about, or this researcher that has researched particle physics and quantum physics, he's saying that we're in a video game and that every potentiality has been programmed into something. It's like every potential outcome has been programmed into something. We just know what it is. We don't know particularly what it is. But I'll compound, or I don't know if that's the word, but I'll elaborate on this with Sissy's question. It's a choose your own adventure novel. If you remember the choose your own adventure novels, as the user, you chose how it went, but every potentiality was pre-programmed. So this is, that sounds like I'm telling you that your reality is scripted. It's not. In Lara Croft, you can jump off a building, you can go see the guy, you can get the health pack, you can do whatever. Think of Grand Theft Auto. You can get in a car, you can get an airplane, you can do it. That real human being, after playing Grand Theft Auto, got in an airplane and started flying an airplane around just like he was in Grand Theft Auto. These are all potentialities that God programmed into it, and we determine the outcome. This is the whole point, you guys. Oh, we have free will. We have free will. We choose the path. We choose the direction. Your faith has made you whole. If you had enough faith, you could move a mountain into the sea. All of these things are potentials, and we determine which option manifests by how we interact with it, by what we believe. I say it's a fully immersive choose your own adventure novel. And God, outside of time, knows what we're going to do, but that doesn't mean that he told us what to do or that he made it happen. This is the idea of the simulation. You put it in, it runs its course. We're doing the things. We have absolute free will. This is the same. It's everything we believe about reality. It just explains the mechanism, the operating system. God is the programmer. If this is a computer reality, and it doesn't have to be a computer, it could be something like a computer. It doesn't have to actually be a computer. But we have free will in it, and you'll see what I get into with this Torah code. Why are these things in there? Because every potential scenario is in there. I don't know how it works. I understand it's an incalculable amount of information, but whatever, it's a beautiful mystery. As far as the Bible code and the end thing, I want to watch this and then I'll get into the answer for that one. That one's really, not to say it's easy, but that one's real. It will be easy for me to explain that. So real. Even Brendan McKay, the world's most I'm going to rewind it just a second so you can hear that again. This guy, Brendan McKay, is a real piece of work. He's a real piece of work. I got other words I want to say about him, but I'm not going to. We're going G version tonight. He's the guy who single-handedly ended the Bible code phenomenon because he came up with some lame GoBots version of the Bible code to show that anybody could do anything they wanted with it. But watch what he says about the Bible code here. The world's most ardent opponent says the information's in there. You just can't use it to tell the future.
By Stephen Hawking and his associate Thomas Hertog from CERN. And they have something called the top-down hypothesis of particle physics. And again, this is Stephen Hawking, one of the world's leading theoretical physicists. And his model suggests that literally every outcome of every decision is already digitally programmed within something. And by our active observation and by our choices, we collapse that particular reality.
Even Brendan McKay, the world's most outspoken Bible code critic, concedes that information pertaining to events that have already happened are found encoded in the Torah. The problem occurs when someone looks to the code for some yet to happen future event and claims to find it.
From the Da Vinci Code to the Bible Code, there's always been mystery surrounding hidden messages in some historical articles. But are these codes real, or just a great way of getting to the top of the bestsellers list? Well, luckily we have mathematician Brendan McKay with us here today to help us sort it out. G'day Brendan, how are you?
Hi John.
Now, first of all, what are these codes and are they real?
Well, that's a good question. The claim is that if you analyse the text of the Bible in the original language, which is Hebrew, and use a computer in a particular way, you can detect hidden messages inside it concerning the future.
And so, what were they saying, and are they real?
Well, there's a number of different claims. One of the claims is that there are messages concerning the current time and things that might happen, earthquakes, assassinations, future calamities that await mankind.
So these are quite specific things that they say?
Yeah. Places, times, dates, details, yes.
So have any of these things actually happened?
No.
So that's the first thing. These things actually haven't happened.
Well, you know, it depends exactly what you mean, because after the thing actually happened, you can go back and find the prediction there. But did you find it before it actually happened or only after? This is an important point to make.
The reason you can't use the code to try to predict a predetermined, written in stone future event is that information in the Torah creates the opportunity for all outcomes. And this is what the Torah code is. It is a glance into the potential outcomes that are encoded into the source code.
It's okay. It's okay. The subject of this speech is a topic which has been discovered recently and which may not exist at all. I may be talking about something that does not exist. Therefore, I'm free to say everything or nothing. I know of no one who has ever made this claim before. We are living in a computer-programmed reality.
Well, maybe we're in a simulation right now.
Can I be sure that this mathematical reality isn't actually some kind of game or simulation?
I personally find that I gravitate more towards the information theoretic point of view and believing that the universe that I exist in is a very good, high-quality simulation.
Are you saying we are all just, there's some entity that programmed the universe and we're just expressions of their code?
Torah is just a long string of numbers. Some say that it's a code sent to us from God.
The Torah, it's called the general program for operating the whole of reality.
Time to restate my assumptions. 1. We are living in a simulated reality. 2. The simulation is being generated from a computer that is in a different plane of existence. 3. This computer functions using a program that operates by using an alphanumeric-based software code. 4. The ancient Semitic language of Hebrew is the language the computer code is written in. 5. The 3,300-year-old manuscript, the Torah, is the string of letters and numbers that generates this reality. It is the code. Lost, or at least overlooked in the complexity and brilliance of the machine we are in, is the nearly incomprehensible gift of free will. The ability to love who we want, live where we want, do what we want, even eat what we want, and it is totally taken for granted. So what is this place? It is a fully immersive, choose-your-own-adventure novel, a free will simulation, made by a mind so brilliant and so far advanced from what we are that it is hard to comprehend. A mind that in its unlimited capacity decided to make us, to make this for us.
I crossed the market to the sea, just to know what you mean to me. But I keep searching for your face to show me what I can't explain. And now you're in my dreams, and I don't know what to say. You're so far from me. It's not what it may seem, but still I hope and pray that I'll see you someday. As I glance up to the stars, I keep wondering where you are. I've searched the dark just to find you, and dream of what may be the truth. And now you're in my dreams, and I don't know what to say.
Awesome. Cool. A10's in here. There was a lot of A10 shout outs there. Praise God. Thank you guys. How encouraging. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Amanda, for the nice things to say about that you've seen the film, that you love it, and that you love the music. You know, that means a ton as a musician that I look up to. Cool. Yeah, really, God gets all the glory. You know, it's one of those things where you get some harebrained idea. I didn't make content. I'd never made A10 can attest to this. Chloe can attest to this. I'd never made a single video. I'd listened to hundreds, if not thousands of hours of YouTube videos at that point. Most of the time trying to find something that I found interesting. But I just started working at it. You know, you get your garden and you start working at it, and you sweat out in the yard, and then you get this amazing produce. And you're like, wow, I know I worked, but you know, God gets all the glory. And I really, I've hoped for a long time that as many people as possible would see that, because I think it's a very compelling look at our Creator. And when you guys see me do these live shows and I talk about God and you know, the adoration I have for Him, He's so dynamic and brilliant. And I love that we have to look for Him. And I love that the more you look, the more you find. It's beautiful. He's beautiful, and I give Him the glory. Okay. I wanted to cover a couple questions there. And thank you guys for watching it. It means so much to me. We're up here in Maine. We got our studio. You know, we're working on the studio. We've had all these technical issues. We got the band. Being able to sit here with these people that I love, and I don't take your guys' time for granted. And to show this to you, I mean, you got to understand, I made this, I see 1,400 people have viewed it. You know, I'd love for that to be 140,000. I don't know how people get that luck or whatever happens, or they're just make it. I don't know what happens, whatever. But I wouldn't have wanted to watch this with anybody else. I watched it once with all my very secular friends, and they were like, "Yeah, cool video, bro," or whatever. I'm like, eh. To watch with you guys means a ton, so thank you. And yeah, if you can share it, it's probably way too late in its life to ever have YouTube ever do anything. But I would love that. Show it to friends, burn it on a CD. Don't even tell them it's about God. Just say, I got this guy I know, we're in a community together, Discord community. He made a video about the simulation. You should check it out. Nobody's offended by God in this, and it makes a good argument for Him. And some of the people that I invited to that show were very anti-God. One guy that saw this movie and said he really liked it said specifically to me that he wanted to put Jesus on a spaceship and fly him to another planet because he hated him so much. And he liked this documentary. So there's a way to do this. Yes, I have, Shadow. I do want to. I actually want to remake it professionally. I want to make it I want to interview the people from the Bible codes, and I want to interview the quantum physicists. I'd love to make this in a very real-time, high-production video. So that would be a goal at some point. Thank you, Amanda. Really, thank you. So yeah, I mean, that guy that pitched the Voice of Reasons to Netflix, I told him to watch the documentary. I doubt he did. Okay, so I want to answer a couple of questions that I saw in here, if you guys are still in here. I know some of you are, but the questions going chronologically. Actually, I'll go back to front, the most recent ones. Michael Payton says, the question is this the tree of life or the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? By is this, do you mean the simulation? Let me tell you this. We were talking about it the other day in our Discord live that we do for the patron members. And we were talking about how Adam and Eve were going to live forever. And I remember Steph was in there. I know Amanda was. I think Liz was. And just I had this revelation. I almost fell out of my chair again. It was like God made Adam to live forever. And because he sinned, the penalty for sin was death. And we know that death is cellular degeneration. And it was like sin downloaded a virus into his DNA, into his genes. And it was a self-destruct sequence. So that's kind of crazy. The structure of the code. So I want to be really careful. I don't know if I can answer that fully, but it's very important. Just like I was talking to Rich about breathing. None of this is about obviously worshiping the code or the algorithm. This is where people start talking about the universe and all this stuff. It's such an amazingly intricate timepiece. I had the clip from the Dark Crystal at one point in there where all the planets are moving. That girl made that, the troll girl made the solar system or whatever. It's this beautiful, intricate timepiece that God made, but obviously, all glory goes to Him. And how do we interact with it? What is our role? And it's to find Him. I very much believe that the number one tenet of this reality is in your heart. Everybody has a yearning to find out who made this. You ask that question about any kind of beautiful authorship that who did this, and you go find God. And if you look at those other options, they don't exactly impress me. Anyways, how does the simulation work? It's, if you're imagining, I've had to do a lot of thought experiments like this. If you're imagining how God made this, obviously let there be light, right? Well, there's more to light than just it lighting up the room. It's actually in a way, light exists in a way which the Bible talks about. It's got multiple different things it can do. God thought that through. He thought about, are these balls of energy? Are they waves? What do they have mass? What creates them? He had to think all these things through. So did he think it through? And then from his actual real reality, the kingdom of heaven, put these little, neutrons and protons and atoms and tell them what to do? Or did he just, make it autonomous by making it part of a program, like a program that does its thing? It says that the wind is on a cycle. It's on a program. You've got the sea, the currents in the ocean, they go around, they're on a program. The water cycle is a program. The food chain, I've never looked, I used to not want to kill bugs because I'm like, they have their little lives. And now I'm just like, they're just little droids. They're little drones. They don't have life. They shut off, whatever. They're just robots, just nanobots. Not that should make you like go kill anything, but I think that the food chain is, this whole thing is about man's experience. From what I understand, a dog doesn't affect and collapse the wave of potentiality. It's about man. This is man's simulation, and my take is that it's designed for us with our free will to interact with it in a way that qualifies our character, right? You live here for 30, 50, 100 years. You're who you are, and it's all metricable. Your personality, everything's metricable. And so, I've said this before, but I believe that God wants to spend eternity with the kind of his children, with his people, right? We want to watch this movie with our people, right? We want to, like, if it's the end times and we're going to all, start a compound. I can't jokingly say those words because they're going to, the ATF will be at my door. But, if a bunch of people were like, yeah, we're going to hide out and, whatever, like, you would want to have the right people there. And I imagine God wanting to do the same thing, him wanting to have his people around there. Blessed is he who is invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And then there's another thing that gets too heebie-jeebie, so I'm not going to get into that. But it's everything that we know about this reality. It's everything that Jesus said about this reality. It's just a different way to explain it. So you don't worship the earth, you worship the Creator. And you can have a dialogue with people when they start going, evolution. You'd be like, really? Evolution, huh? Let me tell you about the simulation. So I gotta know that joke. Napalm is so funny. Who's Brandon? Chloe will tell me if she's here. She always gets his jokes. The constructor of the code. Hail the constructor. It's so funny. Some things are attractive to share with people who don't get it, and amazing to share with people who do. Yeah, simulation, like Modern Bushman is a simulation guy all the way. Him and I talk about it over email. I should have invited him to this. A lot of kind of profound thinkers get it. But, a lot of Christians won't touch it because tradition, right? All right, other questions. Oh, I wanted to show you guys this. I took the picture of Philip K. Dick. I was born in 77, and 77 was the year that he disclosed this information. Him and I have some very weird parallels. His wife was named... Chloe, are you awake? What was Philip K. Dick's wife's name? Cleo. Yep, Cleo. There's a bunch of other things too, just weird. Melissa says, so when does the end come? Has someone found the end in the Torah? So, in the Bible code, which, by the way, the clips from the Bible or from that movie of the Bible code were from this actual book. This is the Bible code I've had for quite a while. There's times in here where the end is, it says the end is going to happen on a certain day or a certain month, and then on the same table, it'll say delayed. It's really bizarre. So it's almost like it's updating itself. I'm trying to, dude, this is in the Bible code. You ready? This table here encoded is computer to shut up the words and seal the book until the end. The things I've came across. This one here in the Torah code, this table, the word is the writing of God engraved on the tablets. And the other line that crosses it says it was made by computer. I can't, you guys. I'll get weird and I'll have to make sure my soul doesn't leave my body. This one here, I'm just thumbing through this. This one here, it's like I'm making it up. I can show you this. I'm not making any of this up. For you, the encoded hidden secrets. He sealed the book until the time of the end. Anyways, I'm trying to find this where it has the end times and then it says delayed. But anyways, I think it has been predicted. I think the end times have also been delayed multiple times. I think God in his mercy has pushed the day back. Just my own thing. I could be totally wrong. But the problem with trying to, Melissa, if you're still here, find the end is everything's in here. So yeah, you could totally find in here that the end of the world happens in 2021. And it's just because it's in there, it doesn't mean that it is telling the future. And you cannot use this to predict the future. You cannot. Just like you can't, summon the dead or whatever. This isn't about a crystal. It's not a crystal ball. Okay. This is either a hack that we're seeing inside of this, or that God wanted us to use computers at the end to show that the Bible is so beautifully complex and the inspired word of God. Or it's just that everything that's ever has happened is in there. And just like Brandon McKay said, I like it. The guy goes, so what does it mean? He's like, well, it means people say that if you arrange the letters in a certain way, it has a code. And he goes, well, does it? And he goes, well, it depends on what you mean. Yeah, the information's in there. It's like, well, the information's in there? It's like, well, I mean, so it's not valid, right? And he goes, well, no, it's valid. It's just you can't use it to tell the future. That's what he's mad about. And the world's like leading mathematician who's debunking the Bible code is like, yeah, it's in there. You just can't predict the future with it. Like, cool. Yeah, it's not designed. It's not there to decode the future, which this guy, Michael Drosnin, who wrote this book, is a secular Jew. He doesn't even believe. He's an atheist. But he's like found all this stuff. Anyways, he says somewhere that he says basically aliens gave us this book. Something gave us this book to tell the future. No, bro. No, it's not what happened. Aliens did not give you this book to predict the future. You're looking at maybe potentially the algorithm of the universe encoded in the Torah. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and everything was made by the Word. Everything that was made by the Word. That's what you're looking at. You're not looking at aliens, bro. Aliens. So, anyways, yeah, you could find it. You might be able to find that on this day, a bomb hits the whole world and a comet, Apophis, and it wipes us out. But it's just a potentiality. If you find in here that the Cubs win the World Series, don't go bet on it because it's just a potentiality. Okay, that's the next question. It's not there to tell the future. It's there to validate that God knew the future. It's like a dream. Like when you have a dream, like so many times those dreams don't help you tell the future. Just then it happens and you're like, oh yeah, I totally had this dream. And I've always I get like a little giggle and I tell God, thank you. It's almost like he knew I was going to have this experience or whatever. I knew you'd be here, even though you make dumb decisions. I knew you were going to be here. Okay, thank you. Next question. So is the Torah our reality? Sissy, if you're still here, the question was, so is the Torah our reality, or did we make it our reality? This is where we got to be really careful. I get the idea with this. Good night, Steph. Love you. The idea of the self-fulfilling prophecy, revelations. Is it happening because God prophesied it was going to happen, or is it happening because we're all collectively expecting it to happen? It's hard to tell. This is where, you have to choose a side of the field. And where I want to always go is that I can trust God's word, and God is the author of this reality. So I have to answer this question. So it says, the question is, so is the Torah our reality? Did we make it our reality? I believe emphatically borderline empirically, but definitely emphatically, that we didn't make the Torah, it made us. So to reread the question, so is the Torah our reality, or did we make it our reality? That would be like Mario asking if he made the game he was in. You know, the Torah is base reality, in my opinion. When you listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson and you listen to all these yahoos, Elon Musk, they always go turtle shell because turtle all the way down. You can't have a source. There's a source. Like, this is what we concede. Fearing God, believing God as the universe, the author of the universe. He is source. He is the base level. He is base reality, and we're a subset of that. So I almost can say that I can guarantee. I can't, but I would borderline guarantee. I would bet. Doesn't matter. Who cares? But I guess I'm a gambling man. So that's how I think about it. I would bet all the money that I had probably that Hebrew predates this universe. That Proto-Hebrew, the first Hebrew, the pictograph letters, predates this reality. And this reality is a consequence of something having to do with Hebrew. In the beginning was the word. Predates this reality. So hopefully I answered that question. Next question. Melissa says, it's why speaking in tongues, Holy Spirit makes me wonder what Jesus is saying through me. I have faith that God is real because of my experience, but what does the program mean in my life? Okay. I think probably the movie as it unfolded made more sense of that. Tongues, I mean, I'm rather a fan of the idea that tongues, the purpose of tongues was to make, it was a decoder ring so everybody in the room could understand each other. Although when I had a broken femur, my mom prayed in tongues, it slowed the whole room down, and I knew it was a heavenly tongue. So what is it? I mean, maybe it's a hack. You know, maybe it's like a hack into the cymatics. You know, the sound component of this reality. I don't know. It has an effect though. True tongues, not just like, but like those true tongues. There's an effect on reality. So something in the spiritual. That's something we don't fully perceive. But so that would be one part of that question. Not that I answered it, but the second part would be, I have faith that God is real because of my experience. But what does the program mean in my life? It's just the program in your life. It's no different than the life you live normally. It's just a look behind the scenes. Just a look behind the scenes. It's just a peek ski, just a little peek ski behind the scenes. You know, you're not aware of it. You weren't aware of it when you were younger. You're not aware of it now, particularly. I mean, maybe you are more aware of it. But what it really is what does it mean in your life? You know, it means that the lie that they told us, that they knew was a lie, needs to be thrown in the waste basket. You just need to throw it away in the waste basket in your mind. You need to just totally abandon philosophic and scientific materialism. They're all full of it. It's all nonsense. When you try to solve a problem and you don't have one of the parts of the formula is incorrect, you're never going to get the right answer. You can't. I get that they taught us that, and because we create our realities in large part by what we believe, it's become real for us. But we have to punt on it, you guys. People have picked cars. Old ladies have picked cars off of children. Like, people have come back from the dead. People have fallen out of airplanes and look, if one of those events where you almost died, which has happened to me multiple times, but God supernaturally saves you. If one time in all of the universe, one story like that happened, it would validate that it can happen to everyone at all times. And everybody has that story. Everybody's had the thing. I should have died. I didn't. The thing happened that I can't explain. It happened. Because the program is the reality that we're in. And so how does it apply in your life? Just understand that, like, placebo effect is a thing. The placebo effect is a thing. The placebo effect is a thing, and you can change your physiology by how you think. It's just how it works. It's just how people have cured cancer of themselves. People have healed their brain. It's just how it works. So that's how the program, it's just understanding that, like, you have more control over your life, and what you believe is much more important than you thought. And all glory be to God. He's the creator. You're the created. Will the new heaven and new earth be in a different dimension? I'm going to say no. Because dimensions are specific to this universe. Right? When you think about dimension, like 1, 2, 3D, these are components of this universe. This whole universe is an illusion. It's a beautiful illusion. It's a beautiful, believable illusion. But the kingdom of heaven is an entirely different thing. Entirely different thing. It's a totally different reality. It's as different from our reality as Mario's reality is to our reality. You know, like if Mario said, you know, is the earth where you guys are with your flesh and blood in a different dimension from his little Nintendo Mario world? I'd be like, no, dude, it's a totally different world. It's like a totally different thing. You don't even understand. There's air. You breathe air. Mario would be like, what is air? Like you drink water. Like we'd never, fire, there's heat. You would never understand. It's going to be that, in my opinion, it's going to be that much more immersive. Now, it's okay to say it's in another dimension, but the reason I pushed back there is that gives the idea is that it's like in here somewhere. You just don't see it. I think that we interact with it on a certain level, but I think it's an entirely more immersive and real reality that we can't even, it's not like the 11th dimension. Now, I know that they say the 6th heaven, then the 4th heaven and stuff like that. So part of this would be really just trying to define what dimension means. But if you want to say it's a different dimension, like the 5th dimension or the 7th dimension, you can, but it's I think that we are in a digital 2D reality compared to the fully immersive 3D reality this reality is compared to what heaven's going to be. I muddied that last part up, but let's see here. One without Satan, yeah, and Satan's not going to be there. And somehow, I don't really know how that part's going to work, but I think our consciousness is eternal, and I think we're going to get a new body. And there's the whole New Jerusalem thing back here on the earth. But it says it's a new heaven and new earth. I don't know. It's complicated. I doubt we can understand it with our brains. I see simulation theory is the most powerful analogy we've ever encountered to understand reality, but that doesn't really make it reality. And I like that, Michael. That's total. I mean, right? Plato's cave, the idea of the cave becoming real to them. It's just a way to explain reality. And I'm totally fine with that. And I'm probably around 50-50 that it's an actual simulation. I know I beat that drum, but what Michael said is very profound, very powerful analogy. It's a very effective way to look at this reality, but it may or may not be. And if it is, I don't think it's digital. It's something else. So I like that. The Bible code can't predict the future because the future hasn't been observed yet. That hurt my brain. All right. Well, you get a 1-up. I don't know. We're talking about video games. You just got a green mushroom. That was really good. Ooh. Did I hide it? I don't know what I'm doing. It's really a silly thing that my... All right, I hope it's there. There's some thought I first saw this video. Though it can be predetermined by God. Yes, it can be predetermined. I mean, that's the whole conversation. Predestination versus free will. I don't think I have the energy to get into that, but yeah. Computer is pure logic, therefore you can build infinitely regressive models and make it work, but remember the result of pure logic rules and efficiency seeking that disregards the value of life. Yeah, but I mean, that reminds me of how the enemy is trying to make an artifice, a synthetic version of the Matrix, and push us all into it, coerce us all into it, and make AI at the same time. Well, a big component of what this world is for us to teach how absolutely destructive sin is. Yeah, that's what I was trying to think. Like, is it like we kind of remember what that was like, and like we don't want to do that, or is it just like removed, or is it just a different rule set because maybe there's no tree of knowledge of good and evil? I don't know. It's gonna be. All I know is that I can trust God that He's thought it through, and that it's nothing to worry with. I don't think you'd worry about it, but kind of fun thought experiment things. I'm sure you guys have done this, but I've imagined my little house by the river, the company you'd be with, and these kind of things. I imagine sitting on the porch with the creator, the constructor, if he would have my company, and drinking coffee, hanging out with him. You imagine. I like the idea that we can explore God's infinite creation of the new heavens and new earth for all eternity and its linear presence. Amen, Shadow. Yeah, that's it. Like A10 has a similar idea. Like flying around, checking out planets, whatever. Yeah. I can't imagine that God would have us in this reality and then in heaven we'd be like, it's going to be awesome. One up. Plus we'll have perfect bodies and minds. Man, it says plus we'll have perfect bodies and minds as hard as it's supposed to be perfect now. It was that hard for Lucifer to sin, but he still chose to persist. Yeah, he was an anomaly, I think. I think we'll have the wisdom to not choose that. Yeah, that's why I kind of like, I was like, maybe we just be like, we all know, like, we don't want to do that again. Or maybe that part of we just want to have that in us. I don't know. Fun to think about, though. You hope you get to live in my mother's guest house. Is that because she has passed and you want to spend time with her? Or is it just that she has a really, really cool guest house? She won't let you live in it now. Something I've thought about a lot because I live God is always about free will. Yeah, I don't think he's going to restrict our free will. I don't think that we're going to get up there and he's going to be like, man, cut it off. I don't know. Satan is Agent Smith. I don't know what the hierarchy really is. Agent Smiths could be more just like demons, fallen angels, maybe. I don't remember. I got kind of lost in the last few. They got kind of weird for me, but I don't know if there was like an ultimate bad guy, but that's who Lucifer would be. But yeah, Agent Smith is that idea of the demon on your shoulder for sure. Yeah, she's passed. Yeah, sorry, Melissa. I figured. Although could just be that she's got an awesome guest house and she doesn't let you live in it, and heaven for you would be living in her guest house. More of a joke. Yeah, no, I know but I was thinking about it, like we're having these kind of, kind of deeper philosophic diving into this. So I'm in an analytical brain, but I don't think he's not. That's why it was kind of a hesitant answer. On earth as it is in heaven. In the end, earth will be transitioned into heaven. Wow. It's beautiful, Donna. Nice to see you. I didn't know you were here. Good to see you, sister. Satan is the virus then. I think sin is the virus. But I don't know. I also think the Matrix is, I know this is just kind of hyperbole, but I think the Matrix gets some of it right, just like Star Wars, and gets some of it off. And it just like Star Wars, it's an amalgamation of different religions and archetypes. So yeah, I don't think you can really quantify those things inside of it. I don't think it's a specific to the Bible story, but I'm also just spitballing and getting tired. Sin is the virus. Yeah, I'm with Michael there. He's the architect in the Matrix. There you go. See, I thought there was like a big bad evil guy, and he's that one, like the guy looked like Colonel Sanders, right? And he's like, Neo, you've done it. You're supposed to pick the girl and save the people, and I gave you a bad decision, and you took it. Whatever. So yeah, I think that sounds right. All right, so I like it. Here we go. We just really figured some things out with my brilliant family of Holy Spirit-led individuals. The architect is Satan. Agent Smith, our demons demons are fallen angels and or both. And sin is the virus. God is the programmer. There we go. We got to the bottom of that real quick. We should have a real business meeting because obviously we can really sort some things out. Same as the Freemasons worship the great architect. You guys, I wish Chloe was involved. We were at our neighbors today picking up a door for the studio. She had a door she wanted to give us. And in the garage there was an old rotary phone, and it rang. And I'm like, "Are you Batman? Why is your garage phone ringing? And why is it a rotary phone?" And I went over there, and I could see it in the distance. There was the square and the square and the compass. Like, that's weird. And I went and looked. It was made of forks, and behind it, it was like the oath of the Freemason. And then there was like also like the apron thing, like hand painted. So obviously somebody there was a Freemason grandparent or whoever. And I didn't have my phone on me. I wanted to take a picture, and it was about the role of the Mason, or the true calling of the Mason, and light and spreading light and being immersed in the light and something. And I am not kidding you. It said, and the end goal is to get the password in order to enter the place to see the great grand architect of the universe or something. It said password to see the grand architect. It was too much. And A10 is exactly right. It is the architect. It's totally it. Satan's the architect in the Matrix. Agent Smith is the demons, and sin is the virus. I love it. Oh, you couldn't believe it. And I made Chloe come in there, and I'm like, I had to cover it. I'm like, Chloe, I want you to look at this ringer, this rotary phone. And she's like, I'm not that much younger than you. I know what a rotary phone is. I'm like, trust me, it's really cool. I need you to look at this rotary phone with me. She's like, all right. And I made her go in there, and I showed it to her, and we were both like, whoa, it was freaking us out. Hillbilly constructor prevails. Constructor prevails. Hillbilly Constructor Alliance unite. My mom said all the people who live near my grandparents were Masons. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know your grandpa wasn't one. All right, I think that was all the questions, unless you guys have another one. The tree falling in the forest thing, we covered it. That one's really cool. And it's basically that if we're in a simulation and there's a finite memory space, which I don't believe there is, the tree exists as a potentiality, and you getting close enough to it where it has to render, it would render just outside of your view. So it wouldn't fall or not fall. It wouldn't exist without you observing it. So that's a good one, an easy one. All right, I think I'm done. Tomorrow is Sabbath. We made it through another week, you guys. Praise God. So Shabbat Shalom. Enjoy your Sabbath. Hopefully you can rest. We'll be back on Saturday night. I've got the, oh, I didn't tell you guys, wiped my phone, master reset, and I got TikTok on it again. So that's a hack we figured out. Just got to wipe your entire phone out and start over. So I'll be able to interact more on there, and start making some videos, hopefully, probably Saturday night or something. So get back on the TikTok thing. Let's see. You guys so much. You did great tonight. I really love hearing you out on this. This was the first time I got us all went down the same theory. Awesome. Shadow, I was really hoping you'd be here, brother. I thought about you. When I told Chloe to invite people, I asked her to try and get you in here. So, you know, you and I have a very similar apologetic brain, and I was hoping you'd be able to check it out. So I'm glad you appreciated it. I appreciate you being here. Cool, guys. I love you. I appreciate the time. Shabbat shalom and transmission.